Some of you guys are really committed for being here tonight, and some of you just didn't know there was a congregational meeting. No? No shame here. We hit that light. Okay. So here's the thing is that we're going to go through some numbers and stuff like that of what the church has spent its money on, because I believe that part of being in a body of Christ is that you should know that if you're giving money to the church, that it's being used in good things, right? And so, but before we get into that, I just want to say that it's not all about numbers. I'm going to show you tonight. It's a lot of the heart of our ministry. And I'm using a microphone, even though there's not many people because we're recording this. But one of the things when we started the church, I was just thinking about this as we were worshiping. When we started the church, the book that kind of inspired the beginning of the movement was obviously the Bible, but the secondary book was, yeah, praise God. Glad for that, aren't you? The second book was Letters to the Church by Francis Chan, which is, if you haven't read it, one of the most amazing books that I believe ever written about Christianity. But Francis Chan, if you don't know the book, it's literally a book about how he became a mega church pastor. And then as he was a pastor of a church, had 10,000 people, and he looked around and said, man, this doesn't look like what the Bible says church is supposed to look like. And so he left that church and he went to Asia for 3 years with his family to serve in the mission field, to get back to the heart of what ministry was supposed to look like. And then he came back and he started home churches. And so the inspiration for starting the movement, most people, when they start a church, the inspiration is like Purpose-Driven Church, or, that's the first book that a church planner would tell you to read. And this book's kind of like the opposite of that, right? It's all the other things to do. And so if you looked at church planning guides or books, we did everything opposite of what it said. And for a purpose, because I believe that people are just looking for something authentic. And they just want transparency, and they just want something real. And oftentimes in the church today, it's very much a performance and a show, and it's not real, right? It's a different kind of mask than the mask that we talk about oftentimes, but it's still a mask. And so as we go through this, I just want you guys to hear the heart behind it. Is that it's not about dollars and cents, and it's not about bragging, because we don't talk about a lot of this stuff. You're going to see some stuff tonight that the church has done over the last years most people don't even know about, and so we're going to talk about it, how many people we fed and some of those types of things, because it's important to know, again, that when you're given to a cause. And so go to that next slide, David. This is the only thing I'll talk about bylaw wise, but it's important because it affects the church. So we were a pastor-led church up until a couple months ago, and we have switched over to a leadership-led church. And so let me tell you the heart behind that. The reason is because I have seen too many ministries where it's all built on a person, and that person falls and the church falls, right? And so what the heart of all of this is to say, it shouldn't be built on a person, but it should be built on a group of people. And so part of our bylaws is if I needed to be removed as the pastor, I could be removed. This is not my church. I may have started it, but it's not my church. It's God's church. And so if I go off the rails, then there has to be a group of people around us that can say, hey, you don't need to be pastor in the church right now, and have the ability to remove me as pastor of the church. And I think that's important because it gives some accountability. Because one of the things that causes churches to fall often is, and ministers to fall, is they don't have a lot of accountability. They're kind of out on an island by themselves. And so, one of the things that I've said, if you've been to any of our trainings, is that I surrounded myself with some very bold people who are truth tellers, and with Brandon and Heather and David, and they're not going to take any crap, right? And so, but I think that's important, is that I got people around me that can hold me accountable, and I can hold them accountable. And so our church is ran by a leadership team now that makes decisions about finances and all those things. And the goal, long-term goal, is that pastors won't have ability or won't have say-so in finances, because I believe that it should be a spiritual guidance of the church, and then there should be a group that has oversight of finances. So they're completely separate. And one of the most freeing things that I've experienced in the last year is when it was just me doing everything. I was the benevolence team, and I was the pastor, and you guys can't even imagine how many benevolence requests and food requests we get, right, Brandon? It's a lot. And so before it was just me. And so I was managing all that and making all the decisions. And when I could get to the place where I could finally say, hey, I don't have any responsibility over the money for that type of ministry. So you'll have to talk to this person, to Brandon or to Monica. And so it was the most freeing thing ever, because it kind of separates me to be able to speak into people's lives. Because if I tell somebody the church can't help them because we think they're, whatever's going on, and they're not stewarding their money well, and they keep coming back and asking for more, and I say we can't help you, then I don't have the opportunity to speak into their life anymore, because now I'm the guy that said no to them, right? So separating the spiritual side from the financial side, I believe, gives us the ability to do that, but also gives us the ability, if you look at all these ministries out there, one of the ways that ministers fall all the time is financial, right? Is that they're the gatekeeper of all the money. And so it turns into something that it shouldn't. And so I don't want any control over money, and I don't want any say-so over money other than, group effort of approving budgets and that kind of thing, because it protects. And so one of the things that I'm really big on is accountability. If you guys that don't know me, I've been clean for over 8 years. And my wife still drug tests me to this day because I asked her to. And I asked her to drug test me for the rest of my life, because I know how quickly sin can take over your life. And so I like accountability and I welcome it. And so one of the things that I believe we've set up in the structure here of doing this is a level of accountability that nobody can get off the rails without somebody being able to pull them back in and speak into their life, including myself. Go on to the next one, Dave. So I promise this won't just be boring numbers, but again, kind of hear the heart behind. Go on to the next one. So this is the tithing for the year. Next one. Tithing for the year last year, for the calendar year versus this year, what it's projected to be, just so you kind of know what's coming into the church. And then I'm going to show you real quick in just a few slides. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but a few slides, I'm just going to show you where that's being spent today. And so this is not counting any donations that came in for specific causes, right? This is just our general fund of tithing. So if we had events where we were bringing in money to raise for instance, I'll talk about here in a minute, whenever the food stamp crisis happened at the end of the year last year, we knew that there were going to be a bunch of people hurting. And so, we raised money from the community and those types of things. So some of that money that's not part of our general fund is not on here. This is just basic general revenue or income for the church. How we pay the bills and how we love on people. Go to the next one, Dave. This is what it took for the last year to keep the lights on and to keep everything rolling, like streaming and all that kind of stuff costs money. So we spent very little on paying bills. Half the year we didn't have any bills, right? Because we were in the community center and we were just paying $100 a week for rent. So it's gone up some. It's about $5,200 a month right now is what our monthly expenses to keep the lights on for both buildings and the struggle bus and all the things that we do. And so we bring in as a church about $11,600 a month. And so it's a little bit less than half is going to general expenses. Go on to the next one. When we built the building out, so anybody that was here during that is probably still tired from that process. Because some joker, David, said, I think we could do this in 6 weeks. And so we set a revival date 6 weeks from that date, because yeah. Well, me too. It was actually me. I just been blaming David for all this time. So now he's taking the blame. But so we got the building and we had to gut the whole thing. If you can see in that picture, that's what it looked like before. Glue all over the floor, carpet, and there were rooms. There was drop ceiling. There was water damage. There was all kinds of stuff going on in here. And so we decided in 6 weeks we could gut the whole thing and build it back so we could open on the day of our revival, which was our 2-year anniversary. And so we did with a volunteer army and almost $38,000, which is crazy for the amount of work. If you were here part of that, it's because we had all volunteers. We didn't hire out maybe 10% of the work to get it done. That was mostly just in supplies to build this whole place back. So we got it all the way down to the floor and even busted out some of the floor to move the plumbing and put in all the bathrooms. And then we opened on the day of the revival. And the day of the revival, the preacher came in to preach, Steve Taboo from the river. He said, "Where's your bathroom?" It was 15 minutes before the service start. We said, "We don't have a working bathroom yet." And there was literally a guy under the sink still turning a wrench. And we were like, "Just give us like 5 more minutes." And so we hadn't tested anything, nothing. The plumber said, "Make sure we get this done so we can test all these pipes that you moved so that something doesn't blow up when you get 100 people in here." We did not do that. We opened up for revival with 140 people that night and turned the water on literally right before the revival started. And it all worked, praise God. We were running on a lot of faith. But this $38,000, when we started the building project, we didn't have any of that money. We had maybe $1,000 extra dollars in the savings account back then. And so we said, we're going to do it in 6 weeks, and somehow God's going to provide. And in 6 weeks, we funded almost $40,000 worth of work. The church came together and built this place out. There were some long nights and hard work, but it happened. And there's still a few things that hadn't got done. So if you're wondering why we haven't fixed the last few things that have to be done, because we all have PTSD from that process. And so nobody wants to do the last little bit, but no, seriously, it's almost complete. We've only got a few more things left, and it's pretty awesome that we did it for that amount of money. And this includes, even we did all the lights, replaced all the lights, all the electrical, redid the roof. I mean, everything. We did this whole building outside and inside. Go to the next one, Dave. So this is what we spend. I thought this was pretty cool. Because most churches spend 90% of what comes in on keeping the lights on and paying salaries and all that. We don't have any salaries around here. The only salary we've ever had came from a grant, and the grant funded the salary for the year. So we've never paid anybody any money. And because of that, it's allowed us to love on people in really radical ways. And so the budget that we have and the amount of money we bring in, it's actually pretty amazing, the amount of stuff that we're able to do to love on the community. And so half the money goes to, or 49% goes to operational expense, keeping the lights on, paying for all the stuff that we have to do. Now that's I talked about earlier, 29,000, but that's also curriculum and all the other operational expenses that's in this number, right? So what else is in there, Danette? I put you on the spot. Insurance, that kind of thing, the struggle bus. So what you see there is outreach, money we're spending outside the building, 51%. I've never in my life seen anything like that from a church budget. So that's unheard of if you don't know. And so go to the next one, Dave. Right now, we sit at about $25,000 in the bank. We have budgets every month that I'll talk about here in a second. But that $25,000 essentially is what we have in PECs, which is what people are spending each month. And then we have a little bit set back in savings, which is enough to pay 1 month's expenses in case something happened. So the goal eventually is to get to where we have 3 months expenses, where, if something happened, natural disaster or whatever, we couldn't be open, then we could still pay the rent and all those things. But anyway, so that's the goal right now. We sit at about 1 month, and then enough to continue to operate, and that fluctuates up and down each month. And then we also have the goal of trying to fund the struggle bus expenses. So struggle bus has been paid for through the church. We've been trying to fund that through events, and so we've got the fair and some big events coming up that we're hoping is going to fund that for the next year, so we can continue to operate the struggle bus. Go to the next one, Dave. This is our budgets. And so basically 11,600 comes in. We have budgeted about 10,200 that we plan to go out. We always spend more than this because stuff comes up, needs come up. And generally, if there's a need that comes up, then it gets met. And there's not a lot of times that, especially somebody in the church has a need, then it's going to get met usually. And so basically what you see here is the biggest part of our budget is benevolence, which is loving on the community and the storehouse. And then all the rest of them are just enough to kind of keep them operating. And then if somebody needs something big, then they would put in a request for that. And it would go to the leadership team. Obviously, we plan to spend a lot more on youth and kids ministry as we go forward. Right? As we have a youth pastor at some point, then our goal would be to give the youth a whole lot more to be able to do events and do things with the youth. So some of these will change over time. Right now, this is just kind of keeping it going. As you can imagine, one of the things that a lot of times you see in I'm not down any church, I'm just telling you my experience, but a lot of times what you see in the church is that 25, 30, 40% of the budget's on production and worship and, things. And we don't spend any money on that kind of stuff. We bought some speakers. It's the biggest purchase we've made so far, right, Tom? And but everything else is stuff that either got donated to the church or that we got at the very beginning, the mobile stuff that we have. And so we don't have a lot of budget for worship or production. We'll need some things along the way. So we will spend some money every once in a while to get it going, but we're never going to spend a bunch of money on stuff like that that's not going to affect loving on people. Okay, go to the next one. Well, that's the main money stuff. Keep going. So benevolence, if you don't know what benevolence is, we have a benevolence team, and benevolence, in the middle of the word benevolence is the word love spelled backwards. And so it's essentially how we love on the community. And it's not spelled right up there if anybody's looking at it, because I turned the love around. But it is how we love on the community. And generally, churches have a budget for benevolence of 2 to 5% of whatever comes in tithes. We spend currently 23% of what comes in on loving on people. So this is keeping people's lights on, helping them with their cars, helping them with, big emergencies that come up, life crises that come up, or it might just be, hey, I need a couple extra bucks to take care of my family for this month. A lot of times, so benevolence, we have a process, and that process is we have a request online, which I'll show you in a second. Anybody can put in any time, and when they put in that request, it goes to the team, and we have a team of 4 people right now, correct? 4? Yep. 4 people who run that team, and Monica has been running it for the last little bit, and she's stepping away, and Brandon's stepping in. Monica graciously stepped into this position. She told me she didn't want to, and she argued with the Lord quite a bit, and but the Lord told her to do it, and so she started our benevolence team and helped me out greatly. And so she has got it up and going, and now Brandon is taking it over. But the only time the benevolence team, like the processes kind of go out the window, is if there's an emergency, right? So a couple of years ago when there was a big ice storm and cold spell, we just paid everybody's electric bill and gave everybody heaters, gave everybody blankets, and no questions asked. So we didn't ask any questions. I mean, I think we gave away, what was it, Donald? Almost 300 heaters that year, and firewood, propane. And so anybody that called, we helped them. So during emergencies, we just help whoever needs it. Outside of emergencies, there's a whole process that has to go through. And the goal of the benevolence team is not just to meet the physical need, but it's to meet the spiritual need too, right? And so they're always praying with people. They're meeting people and trying to figure out, what's the root of whatever's going on. So anyway, we're looking for one more person on the benevolence team. It is the most active ministry in our church. And so every day there's activity in the benevolence team. And it is sometimes making hard decisions, but it is also lots of opportunities to love people and to help people and to minister to people. But we're looking for somebody who can help with that team, because right now there's 4 people on it. And there's an approval process for every request that comes in. Somebody talks to the person, they go through and figure out what the need is. And if there's any hope for them to be able to continue to take care of themselves. For instance, somebody puts in a request, needs rent, but they don't have a job and they can't pay their electric and they can't pay water. We're probably not approving that request, because if we paid it, we're just buying them a few days and they're still going to be out on the street, right? So it's got to be, there's some kind of plan in place. And if there's not a plan, we try to help them set up a plan or connect them with people that can't. So a lot of benevolence is connecting them with different other ministries that do other things that can help meet the need. Go to the next one, Dave. This is an example of during the food stamp crisis. We knew that there were going to be a bunch of people that were hurting because food stamps didn't get refilled. And so we made the decision that we didn't have a lot of money at the time, but we just believed God that we were just going to help as much as we could. And so we opened up the food pantry every week. We gave away probably 50 boxes of food every week. and met all kinds of needs in that process. And we opened it up to the community. The community gave a lot of money to help. And so it's one of those situations where it was an emergency situation, and we just loved on whoever came through the doors and didn't ask any questions. Go to the next one. So the struggle bus and our recovery ministry. So last year we got a grant. It was an opioid abatement grant, and it was $38,000, $39,000. And essentially that was for us to build a recovery infrastructure, to be able to get somebody trained in recovery, which we did with Donald. He became a CPRS. And so our strategy was around, running the struggle bus, having a place for people to come to, so we could connect them to resources. And so that's what we did the first year. And then we've kind of backed up and punted the second year because we didn't get the funding again for the grant. We applied for it again, but we didn't get it the second year. But essentially it allowed us to start the process of everything that we've got going now. And it gave us the ability to do outreach and to reach people that aren't going to step foot into a church. So again, the only payroll we've ever had was funded 100% by a grant. Next one. This is the cost of the struggle bus for the first year. We had a lot of startup costs in the struggle bus, and it's a pay it forward ministry, which means that as we started the struggle bus, it won't be like this at the fair, but generally if we set up out in the public, it's pay it forward. So you pay if you can. If you can't pay, you still eat. And so we gave away lots of meals, but almost everyone, if not everyone, the whole time we were setting up was paid for by somebody else. And so a lot of times people would come in and get a meal and they'd pay for another meal, and pay it forward. But a lot of the startup expense and then just loss from figuring out how to run a food truck. Obviously a church owning a food truck is not normal, but it's a really good way to get out and reach people. And so we believe that it was a way that we could reach people that nobody else could reach. And so $10,500 is pretty good. There's a lot of money that's flowed through the struggle bus. That's how much we lost on just paying the payments and the getting it all ready and those types of things over the last year. It cost about $900 a month right now. And that's what we're looking to fund through the fair. And so our goal is we're going to fund the next year of the struggle bus through the fair and the concert in the park in August, that we got coming up. And so we will raise enough money, hopefully, to keep the wheels rolling on the struggle bus. And then anything that we do on it that way is cost neutral, or just have to pay for the food. Next one. So this is what we spent on the storehouse, which is unbelievable, really. The amount of people we've fed and taken care of for $3,800. We had a lot of donations that come in the storehouse. And so big part of the year, people are donating food, and we didn't really buy that much. We also are part of Hunters for the Hungry. And so anybody in here that deer hunts during deer season, you can kill as many deers as you want, take them to the processor, tell them they're for the Movement Church, and we get the meat for free. So the state pays for the meat. And so they pay for the processing fee. So basically, if you know any hunters, you can tell them, go kill some deer, take them to Pigs or Bilberry's in Hillham, and both of them will process them and give us all the meat. So we got hundreds and hundreds of pounds of free meat in deer season. Usually in deer season, we're great on meat. We stock up. We just now are about to run out of meat from last deer season. In the summertime, about midsummer, we run out of meat and we have to scrape by for a while. That's probably the biggest expense we have, is from midsummer till deer season opens back up. Buying meat's probably one of the biggest expenses we have. But you can see there, we didn't spend a lot of money to be able to feed the amount of people we fed, which I'll show you in a second. Outreach and events. Now that includes Walk to Grace and other events like that, with $6,500. And then the struggle bus, I just showed you, $10,500. Go to the next one. Okay. Hopefully, I don't think there's any more numbers. The rest of it's a lot of good stuff. So on the struggle bus, here's the thing about our ministry is, a lot of times in these meetings, you'll hear how many baptisms you had, how many salvations, and all those types of things. We don't keep up with any of that. And we generally don't post on social media, 3 people got saved today, because we just believe that that's just the work of the Lord, right? And we shouldn't be bragging about all those types of things. So these numbers, we don't keep up with either. These are estimates based on the events that we did, and what we know about the last year. So these are all estimated numbers, but these are the numbers. I started putting these together, and they're almost unbelievable. But 2,000 plus free meals given out on the struggle bus. That's including our outreach events, but also when we're setting up and paying it forward. And then at one time when we were setting up every week, we gave away, what was it, like 15 meals a week or something, that people would come and get hot meals for their family. And then the storehouse, 300 plus food boxes. That's an estimate. It's at least 300. Me and Brandon were talking earlier. If you count all the stuff we did during the food stamp crisis, it's probably a lot more than that. But 300 is a pretty conservative number. Each one of those is, for a family of 4, for 9 or 10 meals. And so if you think about individual meals that got served through this church, and for a minimal amount of money for this much food, is 12,800 meals that were served, individual meals to a person. And that's pretty crazy, isn't it? It's over 1,000 meals a month on average that are being served. And we did it for not much money at all because of all the connections and all the donations that we've been able to bring in. So pretty cool to think about the reach that we've had, again, on very shoestring budget to be able to serve the community that much. We also did Thanksgiving meals last year, but we've given over 1,000 pounds of meat out this year in the food boxes. Go ahead, Dave. So we don't talk about this enough, but we have a website. Everything's on our website now. So the calendar of events, if you're wondering what's happening at the church, Miss Regina keeps that up. And so there's a calendar up there at the top. Our statement of faith is on there. So if you ever wonder what we believe, then it's on there. Different ministries, kids ministry, meeting times, all that kind of stuff. You can even find the messages. So if you want to get to our YouTube channel or the latest sermons, you can find those on there. And then go to the next one, Dave. At the very bottom of the homepage, there's the bottom button down there. I need help. So if you ever run across somebody that needs help from the church, or if you know somebody that needs help from the church, you don't have to call or text. You just fill out the form. So just go on there, click that button, and it'll ask you, is it for you or is it for somebody you know? And we have people that put in requests for other people, right? Sometimes maybe somebody says, I don't want to ask for help, but it's somebody that goes to church here and they really need help because they're in a bad situation. You can put in a request for them and then ask for forgiveness afterwards. But we'll reach out to them after that and talk to them and figure out what their situation is. But that goes directly to our benevolence team when you fill out that form, and they probably come in. I'd say we average at least one a day, right? Average. Yeah. So we get a lot of requests. We get requests from other states. We get requests from, all over the place. And generally we help people in this area. But just last week we helped a lady in Mississippi because she was in a really bad situation in a flood and had exhausted all resources, and she was from here. And so she reached out to us. And so we actually helped somebody down in Mississippi. So generally it's people in this area, but we do get requests from other places. And we get a lot of requests of people that abuse the system a lot, and we just have to work through those. And we know that when you do ministry like this, that you're going to get taken advantage of. It's just part of the process, right? And so we do our best to try to discern that and to try to keep that from happening, but it's going to happen because there's people out there that work the system. But for every one person that works the system and takes advantage of us, there's 3 or 4 that we get to minister to and love on and show them Jesus, right? And then also the online giving is there. If anybody, we've got online giving. I know during the services, we always forget to bring it up, or we bring it up real quick. But you can do online giving as much, or you can also set up recurring giving on there. Next one. Go ahead. So in the church, there's this rule that anybody in ministry leadership that's ever been in ministry leadership talks about. It's the 90-10 rule. Anybody ever heard of that? 10% of the people do 90% of the work. That's what the rule says. And if you've ever been involved in a ministry like that, it's very tiring. And you're sitting around like, man, why is nobody else helping? And so we believe that that's not what the Bible says it's supposed to look like. And I also believe that we have built that culture here of everybody serving and being a part and recognizing that everybody's called, right? And so what I love about what we've seen in the last 6 months especially is that people are stepping into things and everybody's involved, right? And so if we have events or if we have something going on, everybody's out doing their part. And I believe that that's discipleship. It's a lot of times you think about discipleship, any discipleship you've been through in the church, and it's oftentimes somebody standing up here teaching you while you're sitting in the chair, which is good. But it's really not where discipleship happens. Discipleship happens when we're out knocking on doors, and when we're out loving on people at the fair, and when we're out in the trenches helping somebody with a food box or whatever that looks like. So that's where discipleship happens. It happens when we're putting trim up in the church. And so I believe that because we've been in constant movement, it's created an atmosphere where people can serve and be a part and recognize that, hey, ministry doesn't mean you're a pastor or preacher. Ministry just means that you're walking out the calling on your life, which is for all of us to go and make disciples in our homes, in our families, but also everywhere else that we go. So we have kind of flipped the script on that, and we've got, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a pretty large percentage of people that are involved at some level. And everybody's going to be involved at different levels, right? It's one of the things we talked about in the ministry, our leaders meeting recently, is that sometimes when you're in ministry and you're running really fast and you look around and people aren't running as fast as you, it can get kind of discouraging, right? Like, why isn't everybody else showing up and doing all this stuff? But we're all at different places in our walks, and we're all at different places in ministry. And so some people are just running fast all the time, and some people are going to serve, a couple days a month or a couple days a week. And that's okay, because it looks different for all of us, because we're all in different places in our life and our families and all those things. Go to the next one, Dave. One of the things that I've been accused of a couple times is building a religion about being anti-religious, and I'll accept that. But I just believe that religion and tradition oftentimes puts us in a place where we cripple the church from doing things to be able to move up in their walk, right? And so one of the things that our goal has been from the very beginning, me and Brandon used to have all these conversations all the time about how do we not become a normal church? How do we not become the American church? How do we make sure we keep a family atmosphere and build something that when people come, it feels different than just going to a church service and going home? And I believe we've done that. We've gotten off course at times, and we've gotten back on course. But this has been, our prayers and our focus is how do we build what the Bible says church is supposed to look like. In that book I was talking about, Francis Chan book, one of the things he says at the very beginning was, if you were on a deserted island and you had nothing but a Bible, and your job, God gave you the task of building a church, and you knew nothing about the American church, would it look like church today? And the answer is probably not much at all, right? And so we started out, when we started the church, with that task. I used to say that all the time. I used to say that in almost every service, because one of the things that I believe is the biblical church doesn't look like the American church. And so we've tried to fit the American church into the Bible versus trying to create a biblical church, which is where we radically go out and love on people, and we keep going. I mean, somebody asked Donald the other day, said, man, your church goes out and does all kinds of stuff. And he's like, well, Jesus did too, right? We're supposed to model what Jesus did. He was always moving, he was always going, and he was always loving people. And so that's why we go fast and we do all the things. Next one. So building, construction projects. We're thinking about a mural on the side of the building. If I can find a really good Christian person that knows how to paint and does it for free. But anybody watching online? But anyway, so, yeah, I know you do. But anyway, so one of the things that, there's not a lot of construction left to do, praise God, just minor stuff, painting doors. We're going to build a sound booth over here, signage out front because ours is getting wore out because it was temporary, and then possibly a mural on the side. Over next door, for you guys that are wondering what we're doing over there, first of all, we got to come up with a name for that building because we just keep calling it the building next door. So it needs to be like something, and I don't know what that is. Donald had the idea of the 24/7 ministry center or something like that. But anyway, so next door, we're doing groups and we're doing kids and we're doing all the things. Our goal is to build a kitchen over there so we can serve meals for events, but also if there's an emergency. One of the things that happened 2 years ago when there was the ice storm and there was a cold crisis, is they couldn't find any churches that would open the doors to let people come in and stay there and feed them. And we didn't have a church at the time. And so, we were trying to figure out how to put people in a warehouse at the storehouse because there was nowhere else for them to go. And we went down to Cookville to the emergency shelter, and we said, how can we help? What can we do to send people here? And they said, don't send anybody here. We don't have any room for them. Open something in Livingston because there's nowhere for them to go. And so that's actually how the storehouse started, was that meeting. And after that meeting, we said, we got to do something. And so we opened that night and started giving away heaters and food. And it just turned into the storehouse. But the point to all that is to say, if there's a crisis, there's not been a place to go in this area. And so one of the things that we would love to be able to do is have a place one day that's on a generator. We could wire this place up to run off of a generator in about 20 minutes, right, Dave? We got a generator. We could run half the building on, or most of the building on. But anyway, the struggle bus generator, we could run this place. So essentially, we could turn this into an emergency center if we needed to, for any kind of situation. And we will if the opportunity comes up and there's a need. But having a kitchen means we could feed people and we could do a lot more. So the goal next door is to put in a basic kitchen. We have the storehouse, and the struggle bus is based out of next door now. So our food ministry, struggle bus storage is over there. And then we're going to hopefully turn into a really cool youth center for teenagers. So the goal is long-term, I don't know when, as soon as we find some people to step into youth ministry and take it and run with it. Not looking at anybody specifically, but I'm just looking around. If you knew anybody that liked youth. But anyway, so our goal is to turn into a youth center and have a cool place for kids to come hang out, a cool, safe place for kids to come hang out, learn about Jesus, have games and have stuff in there. So it'll be a multi-purpose space, but kitchen, kids ministry, all the ministries we do, any kind of ministry that's happening from people in the church, we're doing it all next door or in this room, either one. Next one, Dave. So 2027 and beyond, there's another one that I like, the mural. 2027 and beyond, we are going to need a new building at some point. And obviously, if you come on Sunday mornings, you know that we're already getting full. And once the kids leave, we have a little bit more room. But we really like the idea of kids being in here and worshiping with us, because I think that creates the family atmosphere and kids get to worship with their families. So right now, the way we're doing it, if we're doing everybody in here for worship and then we dismiss the kids for kids church and the nursery, at some point we're going to need more space. And so we're going to need another building. And I know that gives people PTSD for sure, thinking about doing that again. But it's just the reality that there's two options. It's either go to two services at some point, which I really don't want to do, because then it's like having two different churches, right? And so really don't want to do that. It also stretches servants and stretches anybody that's, doing kids ministry or serving on worship teams and all that. So there's some good things about it, because you get to serve a service and then sit the service and actually go to church and not always serve, because people like Miss Regina and Ashley, the other day we were talking about, Miss Regina's been here over a year. She's been to 6, 7 church services on Sunday morning, because she's always, none of you kids got that. Nobody said 6, 7, but because she's always serving in the kids ministry. And as soon as we got to the point where she could come out of the kids ministry and we had a rotation, then we split the classes. And so her and Ashley are back serving every week. So we desperately need help in the kids ministry. Anybody that's willing to serve. It's not as bad as it used to be. It was like all the kids in one room and kind of chaos. Now there's 3 different classes: nursery, 3 and under, and then you've got the 4 to 7, 4 to 8, and then 8 to 13. So we got 3 different classes. Makes it a lot easier to serve. Anybody that can just give, a weekend out of the month can serve in one of those ministries to help them. And anybody that's interested in leading some of those classes at some point, teaching some of those classes so they could actually come back to church one day, would be awesome. But that's one of the things about 2 services that it would give, is the opportunity for people that are like that, who are serving constantly, to have the opportunity to sit through a service and actually attend church at the church they go to. But the goal would be find another building. My goal, I'm hoping this is the Lord's plan too, but I would love to get that building on the end. The one we originally were supposed to get, we had a lease on it. It fell through. And so we would love to get that building. It's 8,800 square feet. It would be perfect. We could keep this building if we needed to, or we could get rid of this building, either one. But that's the goal, because I think being on Church Street is really beneficial. Being right next to the park, being down here in the middle of town, I think it makes a difference in the community. And just having a lighthouse in the middle of town right off the square, I think is important. And it's where I believe God called us, to this area right here. So we'll see what God does. It's still for sale. But Heather had a vision at one point that we would have this whole block at some point. And so we'll see. It seems to be starting to come true with the second building. But anyway, so it's either that or we're going to build a building at some point, but we're going to need more space. We're already busting at the seams in here. All right, next slide. A couple more slides and then we'll be done. So events for the year, I keep saying we're going to slow down. We are going to slow down. People keep saying, I'm tired, boss. I'm getting really tired. You're here when I preached that sermon. I was talking about that after we built it out. That movie, was it The Green Mile? At the end, he's like, I'm tired, boss. That was me for a while. But I know people are getting tired, and we've been running fast, doing a lot of events and doing a lot of outreach. And that's just a summertime thing here. So in the summer, we do a lot of stuff, and it's the way to reach people. And then we obviously added VBS this year, but go to the next one. So we have our outreach next week is very simple, and it's on Wednesday. Next Wednesday, a week from today, we'll be on the square, and we're going to have, it's the city is putting on an event where they're going to read the Declaration of Independence. So they're going to have a bunch of city officials and politicians, people like that are going to read the Declaration of Independence at 6 o'clock. And then they asked us to put on a community worship service right after that, which I thought was really cool, that they asked us to do that. And so we have 3 churches involved, us, First Church, and then Oak Hill Church, who just opened up the food bank in Rickman, are going to be involved. And so Wednesday night, we're just going to take our worship gear up there. We're going to set up there, and it's going to be a community event, 3 different churches, and then hopefully a lot of people from the community, from the city officials, county officials, and maybe some state officials will be there, and hopefully they'll all stay and worship with us. And so bring lawn chairs. We're going to be probably starting worship around 6:30, 6:45 after they get through the Declaration of Independence. The whole state is doing the reading of the Declaration of Independence at the same time on every town square across the state. And they're actually doing videos of them all, and they're creating a video of like how they're doing it at each different location. We're the only ones that I know of that's doing a worship service at the end, which I think is really cool that Livingston is doing that. But anyway, so that will be Wednesday night. It starts at 6. I'm not sure how long it'll last. Depends on how long the reading lasts. And then we'll go into worship. So be up there on the square. That's going to be our outreach for July, other than the fair. Go to the next one, Dave. So this is the big events for the rest of the year. It slows down after summer, see. So we've got the fair, the 20th through the 26th. And if you're not signed up and you want to be part of that, we're going to have the struggle bus out there, and we're going to have some really, really, really good turkey legs and Philly cheesesteaks, limited menu. Hopefully we can pump stuff out quickly. We're going to be right by the grandstands in the main area. So we've got a great location, and we're going to be there every night. So 6 nights we'll be there. Donald and Ashley are running point. And then we've got people signed up for different events. So see Heather, if you want to sign up. We've got a sign up sheet. You don't have to work inside the food trailer. You can work outside of it. We're going to have people out there praying. Our goal is always that we've got people out there talking to customers, and that we're praying with people, right? The challenge is if we don't have enough people, then that's the thing that doesn't happen, because we got to serve the food that they're buying, right? So if we don't have enough people, then the thing that suffers is being able to minister to people outside the truck. So we want to have enough people so we can minister. So even if you don't want to work in the food truck or work outside the food truck, if you just want to come talk to people and pray with them, we'll hand out tracts. We still got those tracts to go with all the food. Tell them about what Jesus did on the cross for them, and then we'll tell them about Jesus as much as we can. Yeah, some trifolds. Yeah. So it's going to be a fun time. If you haven't served on the struggle bus, it's pretty fun. It's fast paced inside the truck, outside the truck. It's a lot of fun. Not that it's not fun inside with you guys, but just not my thing. How do you get inside?
There's a door.
We're so selective.
Anybody will be able to get the back.
Yeah, we're going to be desperate by the end of the week. So anyway, it's going to be a fun time. And then August 1st is a women's conference. Still the case, right? August 1st, women's conference here at the church. I don't know if anybody even knew that yet, but it's going to be next door. You want to say anything about that? Yes, Donald. Are you saying the women shouldn't do the food for their own conference?
Are you volunteering?
He is.
We were just, I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Voluntold.
We were just gonna record your calendar. Hey, you're all for it. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I like the way you're thinking. You just got some brownie points. Good job. All right. So August 1st, women's conference. August 29th will be our August outreach. And that will be, there's a concert at the park. So it's not a Christian concert, just so you know, it's a secular concert, but we will have the struggle bus down there. Last year we did all three of the ones at the park, right? And they did really well for the struggle bus, but they'll be, I'm not sure if they're serving alcohol at this one or not, but some of them, they serve alcohol, some of them they don't. We set up outside the gate and we just love on whoever comes through. Yeah.
I agree with you. I hope they do too. We didn't do it last year, but the concept that they served alcohol, there was a church that set it outside the door.
Yeah.
And it was Jesus loves you, calling for them to reach them. I want us to back if they're out there doing a secular gospel, we need to find a church.
Yeah. And we caught a lot of grief about doing some of those concerts and promoting that we're going to be there last year. Some pastors reached out to me and said, "Are you sure you want to put your name on that?" I'm like, yes, I do. It's where Jesus went, where the sinners were, right? Not that you're a sinner just because you go to a concert. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's lots of opportunities to be able to minister. And if you listen to secular music, I'm not saying that either. So don't take what I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm sounding really judgmental for a minute. That's not what I meant. I just meant there's opportunities. Okay, so that concert will be the struggle bus set up down there. We'll be doing the same thing, ministering to people at the gate as they come in and serving food. And then, as you can see, there's a pretty big break until November. We'll have a 3-year anniversary and a revival like we did this last year. I don't know the dates yet, but those are the big events for the year. And did I miss one? Yeah. I mean, we'll do other events, but these are the big events. So we'll do, Halloween and little stuff like that. Okay. Not little. Okay. Gosh, I should have put them on there.
I gotta notice.
I ran out of spots on this timeline. I was trying to make it feel like we were slowing down so you guys would leave me alone. Yes, sir.
For the concert, we'll do probably a full meeting. So,
Unless we don't sell everything at the fair, and then we're serving turkey legs only. All right. Next one, Dave. All right. Anybody have questions about any of that? This is a public place to, yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. So if a request comes in, then our goal is not to meet emergency needs, because a lot of times we do, but I'm saying like not to meet them within 24 hours. So, but a lot of our requests come in, it's like I got to have my rent paid today or I'm getting kicked out. And so, but it's easy to get kind of taken advantage of if you allow people to push and say, I got to do this today. When you're going to do it. So we try to keep it where it's at least a 24-hour period is what our policy says. But when a request comes in, then there's constant communication on Marco Polo still. Is that what you guys use? In the chat? So they've got a chat, and then they've got a video message chat where they all can talk together and everybody has to vote on it. So everybody votes before they make a decision. Got to get majority vote to make a decision. And then if the need is going to be met, then somebody in the group, oftentimes Brandon, is the one that's going out meeting them and taking the checks and that kind of thing, or Monica's if it's a money situation. And so we don't give people cash; it's paying their bills for them, or meeting whatever need they have. So we don't do cash or anything like that. We'll do cashier's checks to the place where you're paying rent or something like that. But for the most part, it's constant communication. They come in, they're talking all the time. It's a very, very active ministry. And what we'd love to have is some more people that are willing to go out and take some of the burden off of Brandon, because those 12,800 meals, he might have delivered about 8,000 of them in the last year. So there's a lot of times he's going out by himself, and really we should have two people going out together. But a lot of times there's just nobody else to go. And so Brandon will go anywhere and do anything. And he's willing to go anytime, which I know not everybody's able to do that. But so we need people that are willing to meet him, go meet people. There's a lot of ministry that happens. I mean, I'm on the board for vocational rehab, and vocational rehab is, they help people get jobs in this area, people with special needs, people with addiction, things like that. And I was at the last board meeting and they were talking about their year stats. And literally the chairman of the board said, out of the 100 and whatever people that came through Voc Rehab, probably half of them came through this church for the whole Upper Cumberland. And, he was somewhat joking, but he was being serious, because Brandon and I send 1 million people down there. And anybody that struggles to get a job or struggles with whatever transportation, any kind of disability or addiction, even chronic conditions that allow them to not be able to work or do a normal job, we send them down there. And actually, one of the ladies we sent last year was one of their success stories. She came out of jail and she wanted to start her own business, but she was a convicted felon. She started a cleaning business and we referred her down there. She came to church here one time and we made the referral to them. And I just found out a year later, I didn't even know this happened, but they actually helped her create a business plan, and they gave her $10,000 to start her business with. And that was one of their success stories of they helped her get her business off the ground. Now she's got a successful cleaning business, all because she came here one time and we made a referral, and then she never came back. which is pretty awesome, right? That we just connect people and things happen, and sometimes we don't get to see the fruit of it. But anyway, the point to all that is to say that Brandon is in the trenches a lot and needs some help in the trenches. And it's a pretty awesome ministry because you get to do things like that and you get to find people that everybody's forgotten. I mean, there was another example recently, a guy that had been just reaching out to everybody, begging for a job, begging for a ride, didn't have transportation. Brandon kept going back and taking him food and kept ministering to him, and then eventually found him a job and somebody that would go pick him up. And now hasn't asked for a food box since then, right? He finally got a job after 6 months. So we kept helping him. And, you know, some people would say we shouldn't keep giving people boxes, but it gave Brandon the opportunity to go minister to him over and over until we finally connected him with somebody that now he's got a leg up and not just a handout. Any other questions? Did I answer your question enough? Yep. We have a printout of all the financials. Anybody wants that? You don't have to take it, but if you want to see where the money's been spent, like which categories, we've got a summary report that Danette has up here. If anybody wants that. Come on, somebody's got another hard question. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the bylaws? Yeah, that was part of the bylaws, but we can get a copy of the bylaws. I'll send them to you. Do you have a copy, or we'll send them? Okay. Yep. 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 Yeah, I think we might have added one more thing to it, but it's on the website. Yep. Yes. Q4 25. So that was the last quarter, the last 3 months of 2025. Yeah. So like the end of the last fourth of the year, October, November, or November, December, October, November, December. Yeah. Anybody else?
The bread for yes, just for people get them from the